He's been on radio, TV, and in a newspaper. He's traveled with presidents. Who is he? We've got him coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at the Myrtle Beach Herald. We're focused on broadcasting and print, and we're visiting with one of its many, many longtime experts, Steve Porter. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning. Good morning.
It's weird calling you an expert, I guess, but you've probably been called a lot of things.
Plenty.
Over the years.
Oh, yeah.
It was great being with you back in December. I think it was December 8th you were with us. We were filming at the Myrtle Beach Herald when it was housed over at the Ball, and now we're filming at the Myrtle Beach Herald again, but we're housed in a different studio.
Right.
A little further away.
Pretty fancy here, I must say.
We've been very blessed. You know, I think back about some early experiences for you at WFLA in Tampa, which is a big mecca where they have a TV and newspaper together under one roof.
Yeah, that's the way it was when I was there, but then that split, and then it came back together again.
That's right.
So it's very interesting.
Steve, real quick about yourself for viewers. Of course, you know the bulk of our viewers are in the PD in southeastern North Carolina. Many of them may not have a chance to pick up WRNN in the mornings, and obviously you're on air right now and, of course, doing so many things. Are you originally from the area?
No. I was born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So I'm a Yankee, and that's where everybody says use, you know. And, yeah, I grew up there and went through high school, and the day after I left high school, the moving van was in the driveway, and we moved to Florida. And I went to college at the junior college there in St. Petersburg, Florida for the first 2 years, and then went to the University of Miami. And that's when I got into the broadcasting business for real, was down there. And got married and all of that sort of thing, and went back to Tampa because they wanted me to come back and be their news director. I was like 21 years old.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
21 as a news director?
Yeah. And then a few months after I got there, they had me co-anchoring the evening television news.
This is on FLA?
On WFLA,
come
Channel 8.
on.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
And then San Antonio came calling about 2 years later, and I went out there and anchored a morning 2-hour talk show. Well, it's kind of like the Today Show, but on a local level, you know. You'd have school crossing guards as your guests instead of the Secretary of State, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it also gave me a chance to get to touch the networks because that was right after JFK was killed. And, of course, Lyndon Johnson had his place right there, north of San Antonio, just west of Boston. It was only about an hour's drive if you did about 90 miles an hour, which everybody did. And so we wound up being the coverage agent for ABC News, because ABC News at that time was just beginning as an organization. They had very few people, and so they would ask us to go up there and shoot news conferences and events and things, and they wouldn't even send their own people out from D.C. or New York. So I was the one that was able to go up there and do a lot of that, and got involved a little bit with it. And after about a year and a half in San Antonio, Westinghouse came and asked me to go to Philadelphia to start their all-news operation. Now, they are the originators of all-news radio.
KYW.
And KYW, they asked me to be their first anchorman, so I was.
Man.
And, in fact, I was the only guy in that beginning. They started out doing it in half-hour segments. Each anchor did a half-hour, then was off for an hour because he had to go back with a stapler and staple all this stuff up. I mean, you couldn't write anything.
Yeah, sure.
It was just we used to kid, the editors would say, just give me enough so I can weigh it because I'll know you got enough to get through. They didn't even blue pencil it or anything. So I was their first anchorman, but they, after a few months, decided to give me the whole morning. So I did from like 6 to 10, all one thing.
This was just you.
Yeah. And then WCBS decided, Bill Paley decided that he'd had it up to you-know-where with Westinghouse going gangbusters in New York City.
Right.
He said, we should have done this years ago, and he decided to turn WCBS into an all-news operation. And I was one of the first people they called. And so I wound up on WCBS in New York. I was there for 6 years. And it was a fight. I mean, we went back and forth with Westinghouse the whole time. But we established a new kind of programming that had never been tried before. And on both stations, it is still pumping along just like it did that many years ago.
Yeah,
They virtually unchanged in all those
Viacom
years.
is printing money. I mean, obviously, and serving the community very well.
Oh, yeah.
Serving the community very well.
Yeah, I mean, if you were a news junkie, that was the kind of format to be in because it was just news all the time.
Right.
And you lived it and breathed it, took it home with you and everything. And then NBC kept coming after me. Russ Tournament was the manager of the NBC radio news operation at the time. And he kept calling me up and saying, Steve, would you like to come over here? You know, and I'm thinking, do I want to go over there and do nothing but 5-minute newscasts on the hour, you know, every hour?
Right.
But, of course, it would be nationwide. It wouldn't be local New York.
Right.
And finally, they made an offer I couldn't refuse.
Wow, what's that like? Getting an offer you can't refuse.
It's a good feeling. I gotta tell you, a good feeling. Well, for instance, when I jumped from Philadelphia to New York, my salary, 1, 2, 3, more than quadrupled.
No.
Just in that
and of
one
course,
jump.
that's market rank 4 to market rank 1.
Yeah.
So
But that's how low. Don't go to Philadelphia if you're in broadcasting. There's no money there.
Yeah, there may be now.
Maybe, but New York's got the money, and so then I went over to NBC, and I was a team of 4 guys that were brought in to completely change the NBC radio network, and we developed the format now that exists now, and that is instead of having like Don Pardo or somebody down the hall come walking up at 2 minutes to the hour and walk in and they hand him a script that he goes and reads on the air. When we went there, they decided they'd hire 4 legitimate broadcast journalists, and they would write their own stuff, and they would do 4 newscasts in a row. So you do a block, you know, and that's still the way it is. It's still the way they operate.
Steve, how does it all come together in your head, Steve? I mean, how are you able to make it concise and kind of to keep it simple, stupid? Do you work from that mainframe?
No, it's something you just learn. There are certain ways in which these things are done, and you just learn them, and you use it. So you could do it in your sleep, practically.
Yeah.
It's nothing untoward. Anybody that gets a good education in the English language and knows political science and history, and has a respect for our international world that we live in, should be able to do this if they've got a modicum of talent. You don't have to have the greatest voice or looks in the world, but if you can write and make things simple and concise, you know, you can do well in this. And I've been around an awful lot of very talented people, and that's one of the things that I've really enjoyed about my career, I think more than any other, is that I've gotten to meet and be involved with so many wonderful people.
Oh, yeah. Steve, well, you know, it's often so difficult to make things concise, just to keep it, you know, you think about that old Abe Lincoln, you know, Mr. Lincoln,
Right.
Can you give a 2-hour speech? How much time do you need? I'm ready. How about 30 minutes? I'm ready. How about a 10-minute speech? Well, I'll need a week to prepare that.
Yeah. Well, it is. I mean, if you've got a big subject to discuss and you're given very little time to give it in, that's a job. If you're allowed all the time in the world to ramble, you know, what the heck? I mean, that's easy. Edward R. Murrow had a good statement, and so did Walter Cronkite, who made this statement in my presence. Murrow would say, tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them, and then tell them what you told them. And if you do that, you've got your audience, and the audience has gotten your message. Cronkite used to say, don't try to get the idea that you can be a newscaster in broadcasting without being entertaining. Being entertaining in what you do is a key to the communication. People don't want to even watch the news unless they feel somehow they are being entertained. And so he had this persona that we would watch, and that was Walter. And he was entertaining us with his character and personality. He wasn't just sitting there deadpanning into the camera and reading like an airplane ticket agent. That's what makes him different, and that was the entertainment part of it. So I always took that very seriously.
Steve, who are some young guns now is there anyone that gives the impression that they will be able to follow in a Walter Cronkite?
No, I don't see anybody out there.
Brian Williams or the...
He just, Brian's a nice fellow, and he's good looking, and all of that, but I don't see the fire in his eyes.
Stone Phillips?
And Stone, same thing. I I don't have this feeling of like old Walter was, and that's the way it is. You know? You don't get that. Edward R. Murrow had that ability with a cigarette to sit there, you know, with his deep voice and give the impression that he was the god of broadcasting. Well, Brian Williams does not give me the impression he's the god of broadcasting.
So there's no one right now that...
No, not.
Well, then how do you get the... I mean, how are you able to share with folks, let's say your children or teenagers, about... How are you able to talk to them about Murrow and Cronkite and... other than just talking about the past? I mean, how do you give them a sense of there's something ahead?
Well, you can't. I mean, they're going to have to live in their world, and of course, I think the 6 o'clock evening big newscast is a dinosaur. I think it's over. There are too much competition. I think the networks over the years will continue to try to put that Tiffany product in there for many years to come, but as a serious source of journalism or news for the public, it's almost gone, you know? But you're still going to have the superstar there for quite some years to come.
Right.
So I don't know what to say to children because they don't know who Edward R. Murrow
of course not. Sure.
was.
You know, to talk about those folks
and I don't know how the journalism and communication schools do it. I haven't seen what they're doing lately. But I have a feeling that they are not talking about what I'm talking about. They've got other fish to fry, and that they might consider somebody like Brian Williams or any of the others to be good examples of broadcasters. I say they're good, but they just don't have that star quality, what can I say, fire in the belly feeling that a lot of the people that started out in this business and made it great had. I mean, David Brinkley had a very clear character and personality. He had a writing style that just stood out, and Chet Huntley did to a certain extent, and certainly Walter and the rest of them that I'm speaking about. You knew who they were immediately. I mean, I look at Brian Williams sometimes, and I look at Stone Phillips, and I look at, and it's like they've all been cut out of the same cloth. You know, they all look alike. So there's just. I don't know, and again, it goes back, I think, to the way the networks tend to look for commonality, and the consultants tell them what the consultants want to tell them. And I can't stand consultants. I just think 9 times out of 10 I've ever had to deal with one, I've proven them wrong.
Brokaw, Jennings, Rather, which of those three do you think really stands out?
Well, Rather stands out as someone who's losing it. I mean, I've always thought he was ready to lose it, and I think he's real close to it this time. In fact, that's the only reason I watched him a lot, is because I'm waiting for him, to get up and take his coat off and leave the set. You never know what this guy's going to do, and that's the reputation he has.
Brokaw and Jennings?
Brokaw's a nice fellow. Of course, I worked with him, and I first met him, gosh, even before. He was just becoming a White House correspondent at the time when I met him. And I thought he was a really nice guy, and he is very good behind the scenes. He's a very good researcher, good on the telephone, and good investigative reporter. People don't give an anchorman credit for that, but he is. And a very dedicated guy. On the air, I'm sorry, he is too, I think, to a certain extent, rather bland, And Jennings is, of course, Jennings never graduated from high school.
I remember. He's Canadian.
Correct. He's Canadian.
Yeah.
And he's a pretty boy. And I know a little bit about his personal life, and he's a nice man and all of that, and I just as soon leave it there.
Yeah, okay. Good. We haven't even yet gotten to your presidential traveling and heading out, but of course we think about the series of firsts, Steve. We think about the youngest and first news director there at FLA, that experience virtually coming out of college. I know even there were firsts before that, but then heading to San Antonio, being first on the scene, obviously heading to Philly, another first. How do you live with that mindset, and obviously coming down here and then bringing both broadcast radio and print together?
Well, I don't know. I love to do things first. I love to make changes every couple of years. I haven't done it since I've been here. But this is, after all, I think I've lived my broadcast life in that sense. And I also spent, I didn't finish, of course, when I left New York after 17 years. I went to Washington and went to the White House, and I spent 10 years there.
That's right.
And staying there means hanging on by your fingernails every day of the week for 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
So you're not looking for change when you're sitting in that place. You're just looking to stay there.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's what that was like for 10 years.
This is traveling with the United States president.
Right. And also I was, when the senior Bush went into office, they asked me to become the network pool reporter for the radio networks, and I also did syndicated television for NBC.
Is that right?
So I traveled everywhere with Jim Baker, Secretary Baker, all over the world. And what they would do is I would go over to state and go traveling with him, and then I would come back, and instead of having an office and a place at the State Department, I'd go back over to the White House and resume my duties over there as a White House
Oh, my
correspondent.
God, Steve,
So
they were sapping you.
Yes,
you
they
know.
were.
Yeah.
They certainly were. But I don't regret any of it.
Oh, my
You know,
God.
it was great, and I was able to literally cover the entire world.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
there are very few places I haven't been where a Secretary of State or a President would normally go.
Well, could these men or women, I mean, in this instance, it's all been men, could these men be down to earth, Steve? I mean,
Oh,
what
yeah.
was it like?
Now, you're talking about
I'm talking about the U.S. presidents, forgive me, that's right. I mean,
Yeah, well,
or even the other guys, when we're talking about some of the Cronkite or Murrow or Jennings
Yeah, you'd
men
be
or-
surprised.
who are on TV all the time.
they didn't get there by suddenly walking in the door and being said, hey, now you're big boy.
Right.
They got there through years and
Working
years
up.
and years of work and effort. And by the time you make that kind of jump, it's about like going from cook and bottle washer to maitre d'. You know, it's no big deal. But you can't deny that being at that level, at the top, is an exciting and very satisfying thing. And you can leave your work every day and walk out and say, hey, something really happened today. I feel good about what I did. It's like manufacturing a product and being able to have that product to look at, except that it's not a tangible thing. It's just something you know in your head
Oh, yeah.
that went well that day, and you did a good job.
Yeah, I've sat at Dunkin' Donuts just sitting there in my car, seeing someone come up and open a Herald box and pull it out, and see him stand there and read it a little bit. It's
Yeah,
kind of
well,
exciting,
okay.
no? And it's
Yeah.
kind of like seeing
Right.
somebody watch an interview or listen to you on the radio and say, Steve,
Right.
I loved your radio show this morning.
Exactly. Those things are wonderful. And the only thing is, I must make this comment, and I must express appreciation to the listeners of WRNN, because somehow or another I won the Sun News. I was a finalist, I should say,
Yeah.
of the Sun News Morning DJ contest.
Morning DJ, disc jockey.
Yes. And I got this plaque, which I gave back to the station to hang on their wall.
Yeah.
That I am a finalist in the as DJ in Myrtle Beach.
Right.
Look, I think the only records I ever spun on the radio was in my college years.
Yeah.
You know, and where they got me into that category, I have no
Right.
idea.
Well, we hope you'll be the news talk show host of the year
Well, maybe they'll change
on
that.
next Thursday. That's right. There's some big excitement there, of course, coming up. The Sun News does an amazing job with the Best of the Beach. They've been doing that for 52 years,
Oh, really?
Steve. 52 years this past year, and I know the big awards come out, or the big print edition comes out
Yeah.
October 31st.
Oh, okay.
Which will be real interested to see who all the winners are and the three or four finalists they
Yeah.
have in all those categories. That is fantastic.
Well, I feel honored by it,
Yeah.
if only because our listeners somehow decided they wanted to do something for me, so they made me a DJ. You know,
That
that's
is,
the only thing
I know. Well, I wonder if they. I guess they didn't have a news talk category.
guess not.
Yeah.
No,
Because you
no.
really have the lock on that.
Yeah.
For viewers, obviously in the PD in southeastern North Carolina who can't hear you on the radio all the time, you are on from 6 to 10. Obviously, you broke away kindly to help us out this morning, but you're on the radio from 6 to 10 Monday through Friday on 99.5. There are a lot of folks in the PD that can pick it up. Of course, it's pretty much Horry County and specific Horry, Georgetown, but then you have a lot of national and international news.
Well, yeah, we carry CBS and CNN both.
Right.
And then I have AP there in front of me, constantly cooking everything. And my partner Debbie is over there with the internet and with the various monitors on mostly Fox, by the way.
Oh yeah, let's
we
pump Debbie up.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
well,
and Fox.
you know how you have the subtitle, what do you call that stuff, the closed captioning? Of course, that's how we know what they're saying, because we can't turn it up.
Right, right.
But we do watch Fox, the Weather Channel, once in a while CNN, no CBS. No, no CBS. Can't stand it in the morning.
You better not. They may be an advertiser of RNN. You be careful, Steve.
Yeah, I'm not worried. Oh, they're our network on the hour. In fact, one guy called in after this business about the Bush National Guard documents, called up and suggested that we dump CBS on the hour.
Really? Yeah.
The other guy called in and said, now I know what the BS stands for in CBS.
Oh, my God.
So,
wow.
But it does, these things do affect you, but not to any great extent. And, but at any rate, we're real proud of the program, you know.
Absolutely. You've been down here now almost a decade.
Yeah, it'll be
January '95.
Yeah, it'll be 10 years on January 2nd is when I started it.
At WRNN.
WRNN.
You came in originally, I believe, to purchase the station, or?
Yeah, I had already bought a piece of it 6 months earlier, and the owner, the majority owner at the time, he knew I had been through some pretty tragic events back in Washington, and he knew I was possibly considering cashing it in and moving, you know. And he asked me if I would like to come down. Why don't you just come down here in the land of sunshine and do the morning show for us, or something like that. And then I said, all right. And then I thought, well, you know, I don't think I'll buy a part of the station just for the heck of it. And so I did. I bought a piece of it, and I literally retired out of my career at 55, and came down here and started this little morning show. And there was no ratings. It was the weakest sister in town as far as power was concerned. But, you know, we built an audience, and then we sold it to a larger company, which then turned around and sold it to a larger company, and they had the wherewithal to come in and make huge engineering improvements and up the power, and that's why now you can hear us all the way to Florence.
Oh, yeah.
And all around. Yeah.
Moved from 94.5 to 99.5.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's... Now, of course, we're #1 across the board, 12 plus in the ratings in the morning.
Know.
So we're real happy with that.
And Debbie Harwell's been with you a good while. Of course, Debbie, who founded the Myrtle Beach Herald, and was kind enough to sell it. Dave Priest, who was with you.
He's been around a long time. He's worked for a number of stations in the market. And I've had, I don't know how many different partners over the year, but Debbie is really the senior, because I started using her as a fill-in substitute way back not long after I joined the Herald. And she would come in, and finally, I guess it was about 2 or 3 years ago, I suggested that why don't we just bring her on full-time?
Yeah.
And I worried that she wouldn't do it because she's too busy with the Herald.
Oh, yeah, sure.
But she came in, and she is very consistent, and as one thing that you've probably been told when you were growing up, 99% of success in business is showing up. Well, she shows up all the time.
Oh, yeah. And you really have to just show up. There was some great scripture last Thursday in the upper room, a little daily devotional. It was titled, Just Show Up.
Yeah.
So many folks have difficulty getting out of bed in the morning.
That's right.
Just getting out of bed and just showing up.
That's right. Well, that's the big thing. And in our business, believe it or not, I'd say 20, 30, 40% of young people who get into the business and have not been disciplined in that respect will lose their first, second, or third job simply because they don't come in on time, don't show up. I don't know why it's endemic to our business, but it is, I think. Maybe it's a lot of them. But.
And, of course, listeners are so, I mean, you know, they're waiting for the person they know to turn on at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m., and if the person's not there, I mean, you just can't be late.
Oh, I know. But, yeah, that's it. And we... of course, you guys here have done a wonderful job, too, of taking a very small facility. In fact, my college roommate and I tried to buy this television station.
Is that right? Before I did. Wow. When was that?
No, this was in about 95.
Right before I did. That's right. That's right.
The minister that owned
Jimmy Thompson.
Jimmy Thompson. Yeah, we talked to him. That's when this thing was in an old metal building over on Seaboard.
Yeah, absolutely. And 803.
We, of course, Danny, my college roommate at the time, owned the UPN station in Tampa, Florida.
Oh, wow.
And so he wanted another station, and we started looking at this. And then I let him do the talking, you know, but he just felt that for the facilities that were available and the improvements it would make, and him being that far away, he just felt it
took a lot, Steve. Absolutely.
Took a little too much for what the guy wanted.
Yeah.
He would have done it for less. So anyway, then you came along and bought the thing. So.
You've been very blessed, Steve, and I'm sorry we've run out of time.
all right.
25 minutes flies. We haven't been able to talk about traveling with the president on domestic and overseas, and
Well,
obviously about family, as well as just your highlight of being a longtime reporter and columnist with the Herald as well. So hopefully we can get you back in and,
All right.
and highlight that in the near
all right.
future.
Sure, I'll tell you a bunch of interesting stories, to say the least.
And some other ones. That's right. We could even start in Austin or San Antonio and make them special. So
Oh, yeah.
thanks so much for your time.
Okay, glad to be here.
Absolutely. Stay tuned to more Carolina People with Steve Porter coming up next. What about that excitement? Right out of college. Right out of college, one of the youngest news directors in the country, a major market, top 15 TV station, WFLA in Tampa. Incredible opportunity, running from there to San Antonio, to Philadelphia, to New York City, and then to our nation's capital. That experience happens with people. Those people, fortunately, a person like that has arrived in Myrtle Beach, the experience that he can pass on to others and try to encourage young folks to step out, to take chances. But you heard those key words, you got to show up. You got to be there and be a part of the experience. Steve Porter's making a difference every day.